Hey guys, I'm Khadroth. I know it's been a while. We're going to be going over upcoming interludes for 2022 on NA. So let's go ahead and jump right in. Okay, so first up, this one here is going to be Interlude Campaign 13. This one I wanted to talk a little bit about because a lot of people are going to assume that it's going to be coming out here, you know, again at the end of June and July. And this is going to be a period where there's a little bit of churn in the schedule because, as you guys know, NA gets its anniversary a little bit early. We're actually anticipating the anniversary to be the July 2nd weekend there, because that's typically when Anime Expo happens, and that's typically what they try to sync up with. Again, I won't be surprised if this campaign actually gets moved forward in time. Maybe expect it again there at the end of June rather than early July too much. Maybe expect it to move perhaps like a week or something like that. We'll see. But it is significant. We do have two upgrades here with these interludes. Again, one of them being Reines and another one being Sherlock. So the first one for Reines here is pretty interesting because this turns her from being a sort of weird kind of wonky support where she's got some niche uses, but it's not overall that impactful, to all of a sudden, wow, she's actually a really good 50% charger. So you can see the upgrade is here to her Volumen. I'm not even going to attempt to pronounce the latter part of that third skill here. And as you guys know, this skill is obviously a very strong skill. It gives you the invuln for 2 attacks, 3 turns. It's a nice skill to have, but it's going to get upgraded to then also have 20% gauge on top of that. And that is huge for her because this turns Reines into a 50% charge support. This is going to allow her to sort of outpace Waver if we're trying to enhance the capabilities of, say, one servant at a time. So what I've tried to tell people about this is that Reines can be better than Waver in situations where you're maybe using, say, one looper. So if we're trying to have one unit handle all the waves in a node, Reines ends up being better because she, in a sense, with her second skill, has the 40% attack up right here that is stronger than Waver's 30% attack up. Now, the difference there, though, is Waver does it for the whole party. Reines only does it for the one person. Reines is better for that single unit handling all the waves. Now, you might be thinking, well, Cad, you know, maybe I'll have Astraea, maybe I'll have Scotty, maybe even down the line I'll have someone like Skya, and I'm not going to care that much. Reines is perfect for your third support. Not only can she break up her charge into increments of 20 and 10, but she also has, again, that 40% attack up. So she's going to help the one servant handle all the waves more than the party. So where Waver instead is going to be a little bit better than her still is where you're helping multiple units try to NP to handle the waves of a node. So this could be sort of setups where we have, again, like DPS number 1, DPS number 2, and then a double Astraea where you're swapping. You might not have a Astraea yourself. You maybe have to like work in a Waver or something like that. And that's where Waver can sort of help, is where you're actually having multiple units handle multiple waves. Therefore, you're needing the attack power for both of those units rather than just one singular one. And again, it doesn't have to be in a setup like that. There's numerous other ways to do it, but that's sort of where I've noticed Waver has a little bit of an edge, particularly if the two units that you're trying to make deal damage are not the same card type, because Waver is a little bit agnostic. He doesn't care. He's just going to be helpful to everyone. Again, attack up helps everyone versus, like, say, Astraea with her, certainly she has attack up in her kit, but you know, her primary focus is going to be arts. Same thing with Scotty, her primary focus is going to be quick. Same thing with Merlin or Skya or Oberon, their primary focus is going to be Buster. So you can certainly make him work in that sense where maybe one of the units you're trying to do it with is Buster and maybe the other one is quick. He's going to help both. But again, this is a very significant upgrade here for Reines because, like I said, this is going to move her in that 50% charger category. So for a lot of people, if you maybe didn't get Waver with the ticket, maybe you're going to get bailed out by Reines here, and she will have a banner here coming up alongside this that you can roll. So it is an interesting one to pay attention to. I will say, though, this is looking like it's going to be right before Astraea's banner. So be careful with that because, again, those of you guys trying to save for Astraea, you don't want to blow all of your funds trying to get Reines and then go, oh shit, I have nothing left. Next up here, we've got the upgrade for Sherlock. It happens to his first skill here, Natural Insight A++, and it becomes A+++, because they're just unoriginal with their naming conventions, and also there's some weird stuff with, you know, how naming conventions work in the Nasuverse. But still, Natural Insight, as you guys can see, seals one enemy for 1 turn and gains crit stars. It's your nice crit star bomb, but it goes to giving you arts resist down on all enemies for 3 turns. So this not only is going to help Sherlock himself be able to card against these enemies, be able to get back to his NP, and be able to crit even harder against them when he's got his arts cards. But it's also going to help the rest of the party generate more Noble Phantasm and get to their NPs as well. So it is a nice upgrade. It's going to help him sort of provide another steroid to the group that he's trying to enhance, but it can also be used for him to make himself stronger, because again, there's some very valid tactics where you can actually use Sherlock in, say, a solo environment, or just in trying to sort of give everybody in the party invuln Pierce to really help out. I do like Sherlock. He's a very fun unit to use, and this definitely helps him, so it's not a bad upgrade for him. Next up here, we get Interlude Campaign 14. This is going to happen right before Shisho Fest, so it's fairly significant for that alone, because again, there are going to be some upgrades to some units that might be useful to you guys in Shisho Fest. So again, that'll be your next lotto coming up here on NA, so I do highly recommend paying attention to this. So to start off for this campaign, we have Shuten now, who gets an upgrade to her third skill, the Battle Continuation A+, which just is a quality guts that gives you 1 time 5 turns, 2700 HP renewal. Instead is going to get upgraded to also give her 30% charge. So this is now going to make her third skill super important for her, especially if you're trying to 3-turn with her. Part of the reason I think they did this is they wanted Shuten to be strong, they wanted her to be good with the Astraea system, and sort of one of the knocks about Shuten after the release of Astraea is that she didn't really loop, and that's partially because she only has a 1-hit NP. Well, thankfully this 30% charge is definitely going to help her down the line once Oberon comes into the game, but even if you can get into the right set of circumstances where you can maybe have just enough NP generated, you might be able to finagle your way into a 3-turn still with her. But still, having charge is always a good thing. Even if we can't 3-turn with her, we can certainly be able to make her NP, say, once and then again, or just get to the initial NP faster, maybe with a better CE on. So this is not a bad upgrade for Shuten. This definitely helps her out, and honestly, this just sort of exacerbates the problem with some of the other AoE assassins that exist out there. So this again helps further solidify Shuten kind of as a very, very good option for you guys as an AoE assassin here. It's also worth noting again that there will be a rather annoying node with riders in it. During Shisho Fest, she will be able to be used against that node, but she might not be the best of solutions. Then we get JK Fox, aka Suzuka Gozen's upgrade. This one's going to be to her first skill. This has already been one of her nice steroids. It's a buster up of 1 turn that increases your crit star generation rate, and it gets upgraded to basically making it 3 times over 3 turns here, rather than just being the 1 time. So this gives her a lot more breadth in how she uses it. Same thing with the crit star gen and the critical damage. None of the amounts get tweaked, other than again we get an additional crit damage that didn't exist before. So 50% crit damage there is certainly nice and going to help her at least card hard. What I do find particular about this, and this is something that they do very frequently, is the 3 times 3 turns limitation. I never understand this. This is always a really stupid thing that they do. It's a gimmick to sort of stop card locking and basically limit the capability of this skill so that it's not too overpowering in the right set of circumstances. The issue I have with this is, well, it seems to be arbitrary as to when they apply it. Certain units they allow it for, certain units they don't. I've had people say before, like, oh, well, it's only the 5 stars that they don't, you know, restrict it for. No, they still restrict it on 5 stars too. So it's really, really stupid, really dumb how they do this. And honestly, it's always nice to have this. I don't want to look the gift horse in the mouth too much here. It's better to have, you know, 3 times 3 turns rather than say 1 turn, because you're gonna still have the capability of carrying it forward to a new set of waves and stuff like that. But again, I find the 3 times limitation to be particularly dumb in 2 ways. One is, if you are card locking, it just totally defeats the point of that. So it's very anti-Summer BB, and I don't understand why, because she's not that OP in that sense. A lot of people already consider her to be highly gimmicky and don't want to use her overly much for that. And then 2 is, again, you do end up in scenarios where you can actually get more than 3 times in 3 turns. You guys can see she has 2 buster cards. So if you think about a 3-turn scenario, she's going to get at least those 2 buster cards over 3 turns. Well, shit, you know, again, what if we're trying to NP with her multiple times? Then all of a sudden, yeah, there you go. You can't card with her buster card at all if you don't want to lose it. Same thing as well, where maybe you're in a scenario where you're at the end of the 3-turn cadence, so you're at turns 1, 2, and 3 of her getting her cards, and then there's turns 4, 5, and 6 coming up afterwards. It's entirely possible that you get your 2 buster cards here on this turn, on turn 3, and then maybe the other 2 again on turn 4, and then all of a sudden you've ended up where you just didn't have the capability of carrying it too much. So like I said, I find it to be unnecessarily restrictive and very dumb that they do this. So it is better than it being 1 time, but it's it's really hampering, and I don't get why they do this. It's kind of an unfun thing to me, because there's plenty of units that they give the upgrade to that they just make it, hey, here's 3 turns. So again, a good upgrade all around for her, but yeah, these sorts of things always kind of mauled me a little bit for why they do it. All right, next here we have Atalanta Alter, aka Nyalter. Again, she's a berserker. She's going to be really nice for us, but you guys can see that her upgrade here is going to be on her first skill. It's Self-Evolution EX. It's Critical Star Absorption for 1 turn and Crit Star Bomb, basically, of 10 stars. So really, really nice. It already had a very powerful star absorption, definitely something that a berserker would need in order to be able to soak those stars. So you might be thinking, well, why did they feel the need to update this? Let's see. So you guys can see all of a sudden you get more stars to really help you out in terms of your crit capability there at 20. And then you're also going to get Buster crit damage for cards for 1 turn. And that's a peculiar one, because you're maybe sitting here thinking, well, you know, I don't know that I necessarily need to do that. And a lot of that'll be because you might be running her with, say, like double Scotty and trying to loop over a single enemy like a boss, or maybe even just trying to nuke in terms of a raid event or something like that. But maybe you don't have a high NP level of her. Maybe it's not quite enough, or maybe you just end up needing card performance overall. And what this is going to do is it's going to make sort of her Buster cards have a little bit of a pick-me-up in those scenarios where, hey, yeah, certainly the quick cards are good because of Scotty, but what about the Buster card? She's a berserker. Shouldn't she hit hard? Well, now all of a sudden with those 2 Buster cards as well, it doesn't really matter as much what you get as long as you don't get the arts card, because you're going to get a lot more crit damage out of it either way. So this is a nice upgrade for her. It may seem a little wonky at first because she does appear to be a quick unit as to why they would do this for her. A lot of people, I think, look at this and they think like, oh, this is kind of like the Astolfo buff to his skill that increases his Buster performance when he only has the 1 Buster card. But it's not as bad. In fact, this one actually makes more sense than the Astolfo one does. So I'm a-okay with this. And then last but not least, we have Avicebron here, and he's going to be a very interesting one because, again, there will be assassin nodes during Shisho Fest that he's actually going to be great for clearing, say, like the first wave of. Part of that is because Avicebron, as you guys know, has an 80% charge in his kit here. Again, it is 79.5 at rank 10, but it does round up, so you guys can basically treat it like an 80% charge. But again, that is going to require quite a bit of investment. So this has always sort of been the issue with Avicebron, is because he's more of a newer version of Paracelsus, he ends up becoming sort of a other option. The problem here is, again, his mats might not be the greatest there. Ascension's not too bad, but then you start looking at his skills and you start going, oh man, especially those later skill requirements here for the ice and the bullets can be pretty rough on newer accounts and stuff like that. So he ends up being a little bit more of a long-term investment if people want to have him. But again, let's not digress too much. His upgrade here is for his Noble Phantasm. So he's going to be quite nice after this upgrade. It definitely helps his damage out because, again, as you guys can see, he's going to go from just dealing damage to now all of a sudden he deals damage at an increased rate due to the NP Interlude. Again, in those sorts of scenarios, whenever you guys get an NP Interlude, NP2 becomes NP1, NP5 becomes NP2. And just to explain this to you guys here, if you want to look, NP2 is 400%, NP5 is 500%, okay? And then if you do the upgrade, NP1 is now 400% and NP2 is 500%. So NP2 became NP1, NP5 became NP2. So it definitely helps out in terms of his damage output. But then on top of that, he also gets a new overcharge effect that increases his NP damage, activating first for 1 turn. And it is solid. It's a 20% buff at base level, and it scales all the way up to 40% depending on overcharge rank there. So again, I do find that Avicebron's going to definitely be a lot better. He's definitely going to be a more damaging alternative to Paracelsus, whereas Paracelsus is going to be way more of a support-focused alternative for some people. So he can be a very good option for you. Again, later on down the line with stuff like Appends, you could even make it so that he could charge to full on 1 turn with under his own power. So this is a nice upgrade, and like I said, it will be usable during Shisho Fest. Today's video is brought to you by Tokyo Treat and SakuraCo. Both of these brands are premier Japanese subscription box services that give you popular Japanese candy and treats that, again, are very delicious. If you've ever been curious to try out some of the authentic flavors of Japan, I highly recommend checking out these brands, as they each offer Japanese exclusive items that you are going to enjoy. In Tokyo Treat's case, that's going to be Japanese exclusive Kit Kats, ramune, ramen, and much more. In SakuraCo's case, that's going to be authentic traditional Japanese snacks from local artisan snack makers that are not easy to access. And both of these are going to be delivered straight from Japan to your door. Their goal is to share Japanese culture to the world through the medium of snacking. If you want to enjoy pop Japanese snacks, you can choose Tokyo Treat, but if you want traditional Japanese treats, you can enjoy SakuraCo instead. For both Tokyo Treats and SakuraCo's boxes, they each come with a different theme every month, keeping things exciting and fresh. This includes things like Japanese tea, Japanese cake, mochi, manju, yokan. And last but not least, you'll also get a side plate that's perfectly sized. Enjoy your treats alongside that cup of tea you might be having. For Tokyo Treats box, definitely has a lot more flavors due to the snackability of what's in this box. So there's definitely some really tasty stuff like Japanese exclusive drinks like Coke and Fanta and ramune. Japanese instant ramen like tasty ramen, soba noodles, and udon. Rare Kit Kat party packs. Again, these are my favorite. Japanese exclusive crunchy chips and salty snacks. Basically everything that's savory. Then crazy Japanese candy. Chocolate and candies with awesome flavors. So I highly recommend checking out Tokyo Treats box as well, because there's some real awesome goodies that you might never get the opportunity to taste otherwise. Each of these boxes is also going to come with a 24-page cultural guide booklet that explains not only what's in each of the treats, as well as the allergens and things like that, but also where the treats come from and some of the history behind them. It also talks about, in several of the cases, why this is important to Japan for this time of year, as well as, again, some of the backstory of some of the snacks and things that are going on around this time period. So I highly recommend checking these boxes out, as each one of them has some great content for it, not just in the food, but also in terms of history and culture behind it. Most of the boxes come packed to the brim with stuff as well. I was really surprised upon receiving the boxes that there was no real room to fit anything else in them. They definitely seemed stuffed, and for that I was really surprised. Again, I have eaten most of everything in the box, so I can honestly attest to the fact that they are all very delicious snacks that I think you guys will enjoy. I would highly recommend checking out SakuraCo and Tokyo Treat in the links in the description below if you guys are interested in, again, subscribing to this box mailing service. And last up for the interludes, we're going to have Interlude Campaign 15. This should be occurring here in December. This should happen right before Carnamas, aka Christmas this year, but again, it depends. We've seen definitely some fluctuation over time as some people have shifted the schedules here late in the year. So this far out, I'm not certain and able to make a call as to whether or not the schedule won't be jumbled in some way, shape, or form at that point. But again, it is interesting, if only because we're going to get 2 NP upgrades during this. All right, so now we got Lee Shuwen Assassins NP interlude here. He's a relative oddity when it comes to the SSR assassins because he is a single target arts one, so there's not really anyone else like him. But I do think that they looked at Lee Shuwen, and while he is a good assassin, they basically said like, you're kind of lagging behind a little bit in terms of your NP damage, and you know, you're also faced with other competitors like say Kama that had charge in their kit, so they wanted to make him a little bit more desirable, a little bit better. And so what they did here is they gave him an NP interlude, and it's fairly straightforward. They just ended up increasing the amount of damage. Again, remember NP2 became NP1 essentially, and you also ended up getting an increase to the instant death chance. However, this is more of a buff to NPCs if they actually happen to have the upgrade, because I've talked about this before. While instant death can be really nice, particularly for a single target going up against bosses, it's very hard to instant death a boss. Anything with a gold border, anything that's a servant, the AI naturally just has a really low death rate. Certainly you and your servants have a very high death rate, but the AI always has a very low and hard to proc thing, and that's sort of just so that you can't trivialize boss fights. But again, it is fairly straightforward. It does give him a lot more damage. It allows him to be very good with double cast Astraea, though he already kind of was at that point. But this is just going to allow his sort of one-off hits to be even harder, even if you don't, say, have all of his steroids active to help him out. All right, and then for the last one for this campaign, this is going to be Astraea. Now, this is actually one of the most unnecessary buffs I've ever seen in the game. Don't take this the wrong way. This is not me shitting on Astraea in any way, shape, or form. I do really like her. I think she is a solid unit. It's just one of those deals where she absolutely didn't need it. Her competition was, say, like Martha Ruler, and she was already kind of neck and neck with Martha Ruler for a lot of things, but certainly still better when her niche of evil alignment applied. And this upgrade just sort of took her way beyond the pale and made her way better. So you guys can see she already dealt damage, gained 20 crit stars when she NP'd, and dealt extra damage to evil alignment. But then the upgrade gives her ignore invincibility, and then also increased the amount of damage there. So sort of the damage just took her way out in front, and then the invincibility pierce sort of quality of life that they gave her there was just insane. It just made her way better for all sorts of scenarios like boss fights and stuff. So Astraea just becomes one of the best boss killers out there. Like when nothing else works, she is a neutral ruler basically to everything, possibly even resistant for most stuff, as long as it's not, say, like a berserker or an avenger. So she is a very solid option, and actually this buff as well is also going to help her become very dominant for killing single waves in weird 90+ nodes. We actually get to see this shortly after this in the next lotto after this one, as it becomes very good to use her in order to nuke down a single enemy, maybe crit down the first wave due to her star bombs and her kit, and then NP the second wave. So she's able to handle 1-1x nodes fairly easily, and it's quite hilarious to watch. So like I said, this is not me saying any of this because I dislike her. It's more like, wow, she really didn't need this buff. She was already good before this buff. So it is a very nice buff to give her. And I hope you guys enjoyed this. I just wanted to go over and cover for you guys the strengthenings and the interludes for this year, because there's quite a bit coming and they're quite game changing in that sense. So again, I hope you found this informative. As always, guys, feel free to check me out on Twitch weeknights at 7 p.m. Eastern, where I always stream FGO. Also feel free to follow me on Twitter and join the Discord. The link will be in the description below. Have a good one and see y'all later.